ice melted.
Yeah, my glasses came off, baby.
That's hard rocking.
Yeah.
Folks, I'm Tom Vasel.
Zee Garcia, what's up?
I'm dizzy now.
Sam Healey, by the way.
Yes.
Sam,
All right.
nice to see you again.
The greatest game ever is coming to a store near you. At least we are told that
Psyched.
consistently. Today we want to talk about hype
Choo-choo.
and anti-hype.
The hype train showing up to the station.
Right, but there's also that other train where people are opposed to them. So we'll talk about both of them. What would you guys say in 2016 was the most hyped game of the year?
Seafall.
Okay, that's true. Although I think right behind that would be Scythe.
Scythe.
Okay?
Yes.
Both incredibly hyped games. Now, sometimes they're hyped because the company pushes a game dramatically. A company will push it. In fact, some little games sometimes will get a much bigger push than it would normally get because the company is like, every other tweet is about that game or Facebook post or whatever.
Sure.
And they get 100 million reviewers to take a look at it. Other games had the Kickstarter phenomenon, which rolls that hype train up, and that was Scythe, right?
Yeah.
Stonemaier Games has a very strong following.
Mm-hmm.
The game had gorgeous artwork, and there was a lot of different aspects, and that game was strong. And other games just have a pedigree, and that's what Seafall had. You know, coming off of the most popular game currently, which is Pandemic Legacy, and then also Plaid Hat Games, you know, behind it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what are the negatives of hype? I mean, it seems pretty obvious.
Well,
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it's the more you build up a game, the more likely you are to let people down because the game itself isn't modified by hype. Your perception of said game is.
Yeah.
Right. So that game, you hearing nothing about it and playing it could be a game you're very impressed by. A game that came out of nowhere for you and really blew your mind. A game you've been waiting for 2 years. And the game, again, doesn't really change. You've just grown that experience in your head to, to an unfathomable point, a place that cannot possibly be reached. You expect this game to, when you open it, not only be an amazing play experience, but give you a foot rub, too. It's like, this is not possible. And so there you are going to run into some trouble, I think.
I think it also depends a little bit upon how the game is hyped. Because, I mean, you can release pictures and rule books and scenarios and that type of thing, and people will just naturally build hype. Those people that, when they look at that stuff, they're incensed by it. Well, is incensed the right word?
Excited?
Excited.
Incensed is angered.
Yes, it is. No, I'm sorry, wrong word. Anyway, they're excited about it. They are intrigued by it. They want to see more. And that kind of hype is almost like a natural hype.
Sure.
But if you have, like, say, I don't know, and I'm not thinking of any one specific game, but if you have like a group of playtesters that after they've playtested and after they've been given the go-ahead by, whatever type of agreement they have with the game that's being designed and the publishers and all that, and they go out and they like rank it a 10 because they think it's amazing. And then people look at that based upon their opinion, not really knowing who they are, but with this group of people, they've all rated it a 10 or they've all rated it really high. That's kind of, in my opinion at least, that's kind of a false hype because you're going on a very closed group of people and there isn't a lot of knowledge or understanding about why they like the game.
I guess, but that's almost more natural hype because people have played it. And these people who have played it, true, I don't know them, but they're all saying it's amazing. They're all rating it 10s versus basing it on pictures or something, and everybody's really psyched, but they haven't played.
But we just met the heavy guard board people at West Texas.
Oh, sure, yeah. Uh-huh.
What if it was a group of 100 people that were just like them?
Yeah.
And they're hyping it, they're giving it a 9, a 10 because it's their kind of game. And if I don't know that, I just see a large group of people rating it a 10, I'm going to get hyped about it too.
But it's a good game, just not for us.
For them, right. But see, that's the thing. That's bad hype from that point of view.
I don't think that's bad
I think
hype.
it's bad for you to be taken in by the hype, I guess, would be the
That's
better
what I'm
word
saying,
for it.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's bad hype. as opposed to the natural hype where I'm looking at these pictures, those rule books, those scenarios are speaking to me specifically.
I see what you're saying, right?
You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
So those are the two kinds of hype that I see that are out there. There's probably more. I'm not trying to be dichotic about it or anything like that.
Sure, why not?
Sure.
Word.
That's
English.
a word.
Now realize, and I know people will probably leave comments on the thing. This is ironic. You guys are talking about it because you're the biggest causes of hype. We know that, right? Okay, we go out there and we say, this game is amazing. And we're going to talk about how games are amazing. But I think that you should take our reviews and everything else with that grain of salt. Now, we are not, as to our best of our abilities, falsely promoting a game that we don't like.
Right.
That doesn't happen. But we may like it for different reasons than you might. I have so many people tell me in person or emails or in forum posts, Tom said this game was amazing and I played it and it was not. That doesn't mean I lied. I really thought the game was amazing. It's just that what you look for in a game isn't quite the same as me.
Sure.
But
Obviously.
even with that, we have a lot of videos out there. People know, generally speaking, what we like and what we don't like. And they can use that knowledge. If you just have a large group of playtesters that are going out and saying how great this thing is, if you don't know them, if you don't know what they like and what they dislike, that can be false information.
Well, that's why I think the role of the reviewer and previewer is useful, because they can go out there and say these things and then you can look at it. I think hype is dangerous, like you said, because you can have that, oh, it's not as good. And it does lead to those great expectations. But at the same time, if a lot of people who I know say the game is great, I still feel safe to assume that it's probably pretty good.
Right.
And I think that I have to be careful on my own not to let hype work against me in a negative way. And this is why I was talking about the anti-hype. Like, for example, Scythe. It came out, everyone said, most amazing game ever. And I was like, we'll see about that. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
everyone
Refuse to
said
be
this game.
moved.
Yeah, okay. It's kind of like the cool person, like, everyone's like, this movie was amazing. Pfft, Shawshank Redemption's a stupid movie. Whatever it is.
Right.
Right. But it's almost not necessarily. I'm not saying people are trying to be cool. For sometimes it is. It's like, ooh, look at me. I'm the only person who doesn't like Pandemic Legacy or whatever. But at the same time, I think sometimes you can be like, there's no way the game can be as good as those people are saying. So we go into the game with actually negative expectations. I have done that before. I don't mean to, but it happens.
I think it can be influenced, though, by how the company, if they know something is getting hype, how they handle not just what they originally put out there for you to start knowing what this game is, but how they react to hype, I think, is just as important. For example, companies sometimes, film companies will put out a trailer that is very misleading to the way the movie actually feels, right? Like, you'll get a trailer that seems to sell you an action-packed film, and then you watch it and realize it's mostly a drama. And so you will feel let down because you expected a different product. And I think it's important for game companies to know that if your game is starting to gain traction in the so-called hype train here, then it's important to start making those people that might be getting jazzed up about your game aware of what kind of game it is. How long is your gameplay experience? What style of game is it? How heavy is the game? What should people expect? You don't want people, and this has happened, going into your game expecting a big, heavy, strategic game, and then they realize, it's a card game? Oh, you know what I mean? That's like that bad trailer scenario.
How often do publishers, and it's not something I really look at, but how often do publishers post their rules online before they release
Often, just
the
not
game?
so early.
Okay.
Very often, all right?
Yeah.
Like, most rulebooks
It's
are
now
available
usually
online.
the exception to not post them.
Right. Most often it's up online, but it's typically
Isn't that-
as the game's available or like a week before, a couple weeks before, right? That's the thing. Which is okay. I don't fault them for not putting up a rulebook much, way earlier, because they're probably still working on it.
That would be kind of a fix for what you're saying, though, because if people can just simply read the rules and know what kind of game it is.
That's true, but so
Can't
would
always tell from reading the rules.
would a game trailer, which is not a thing, but why not?
I've seen people do game trailers before.
Well, Fantasy Flight does game trailers.
They do. You're right. And so it's very easy to tell
Portal
if a
does them
game's
too.
going to excite me from Fantasy Flight. I can tell. when the game has what they say 4 hours and you can see a bajillion pieces on the board and this and that, I know it's not for me. That doesn't mean it doesn't build hype. It doesn't build hype for me.
Yeah,
Right.
but you know what? There's a lot of game trailers I've seen. Maybe not a ton, but I've seen enough game trailers where I'm like, ooh, what's this going to be about? And they're like, vroom, vroom, and they show a lot of artwork, and they're like, coming soon. You just told me nothing.
That's a bad game trailer, right? That's what I'm saying.
But artwork can get people excited. Also, an IP can get people excited.
Yes.
I could say, guys, I'm making Star Wars. Bloop, 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 bloop. Don't matter what I said after that.
Ding, 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 ding.
I
Take
just said
my
the
money.
word Star Wars or
Yeah.
whatever your, Firefly or whatever the
I don't know.
thing is.
I'm kind of more reserved now. I'm like maybe I'm spoiled a little bit with all of the good Star Wars games that have come out. I'm like, this is probably going to run out here pretty quick. So if a new one comes out, I'm going to be like, okay, what's
Yeah, but
this
what if
one
it's
about?
an IP that they don't have many games about, and it's an IP you really like?
Well, I mean, even staying with the IP, think about that new what is it, Dice Duels or something like that came out for the Star Wars.
Yeah.
When I first saw that, I was like, it looks like it's for 5-year-olds or something like that. But then when I haven't even watched it play. I haven't even played it yet. I've just only watched it played. But when I watched it played, then I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool.
Don't forget, we can't say watch it played on our channel. Copyright and all that.
That's true. According to Marty, he stabs a lot of people in the back too.
That's true. So anyhow, all these factors can come into it. So the question is, what do you do? Now, Sam said we're getting more jaded. We play a whole lot more games, so it's easy for us to be like, we'll wait and see on a game.
Yeah.
But I still can get myself caught up in the hype.
Yeah, yeah.
And we also promote it. We're going to tell you soon what our top 10 games from Essen that we think are going to be good are. We don't have a lot to go on other than how they look, sound, and according to a couple of them, how they smell now.
It's true.
So what do you do with this hype? And I think the best thing is to, if you're interested in the game, find out as much as you can as possible.
Absolutely.
Before getting it, or if possible, play with someone else. But it's impossible to take that hype out of your mind. And I don't think it's bad to get excited over a game. Just realize that the more excited you get, the more of a chance that you have to being really let down. And you might actually have thought the game was okay, but because you thought the game was going to cure cancer, and it did not, you now dislike it when before you would have thought it was okay.
Yes.
Why would you think a game can cure cancer?
Hyperbole.
Oh, okay. I have a question. It just kind of popped in there. How much do you think pre-sales throws into this whole hype engine?
Well, because companies want to sell. You mean
They want to sell their copies before the copies are actually made.
Well, that's a Kickstarter phenomenon.
Nah,
isn't it?
Not just
Mostly.
Kickstarter.
Not
There's
just
also
Kickstarter.
pre-sales.
Yeah,
Plaid
no,
does-
that's true, but it's largely a thing that's
I mean, doesn't that kind of feed the engine? If a company will come out and say, we have pre-sold 1,000 of these, or 2,000, or whatever it might be, doesn't that kind of add to the engine?
Okay, I'm confused. Are you saying that the company is purposely not giving all of the information to sell more games, or that when you find out they've sold a bunch of them, you're more psyched about it?
No. The information that, when companies allow their games to be pre-sold
Yes.
before they are actually produced,
Yes.
or they're in production,
Yes.
and so when they are rolled off the line, X number of people have their copy and it's being sent to them.
Again.
Will
yeah.
that lead into...
Oh, so the knowledge of the other people are buying it.
Right. If I know that 2,500, 3,000 people have already bought the game based upon what they know about the game, am I more likely to be hyped about that game or less
It's
likely?
the same scenario as a few guys playtesting it and rating it a 10 on a slightly larger scale.
Not necessarily, because playtesters haven't put their money towards it yet. If I know that 3,000 people have shelled out $100 for a game, am I more likely to be hyped about that game than not?
I would imagine yes, but at the same time, I sometimes wonder that the people, like this happens on Kickstarter, I call it a Kickstarter phenomenon, where people say a game is great because they backed it. I have a hard time trusting a guy who paid $500 for a game and all its bling, and he said this game's amazing. I'm like, well, yeah, okay. Let me find someone else who hasn't $500 of their life invested in it.
I would like to know how many of those three, and again, that's an arbitrary number. I would like to know how many of those 3,000 people were the playtesters. The playtesters that went in and ranked it at 8, 9, or a 10. Did they put their money into that game?
I guess.
You know?
But it's really hard to tell. Some companies are really good at promoting their games. Some companies are awful at it. Some companies are good at whipping up the fans into a frenzy. to
Yeah.
go out and talk about the game. Some companies are good at getting it out to a whole bunch of reviewers. I imagine there will be a game in the coming weeks that will be hyped by several reviewers because the company was really good at getting it to all those reviewers.
And that's fine. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's not.
If you are clear with what your game is supposed to be. If hype lets the masses, for lack of a better term, down, but they knew what they were getting style-wise, then your game's not as good as it should have been. However, your game might get bitten in the butt because you sold it as this big epic game and it turned out to be a cards and dice game with a pretty good amount of luck. That's just your fault in like not, your game might be a great game for the people that would enjoy it. You've done yourself a disservice by selling people a different play experience, promising them a different play experience than what they actually bought. And that's the bad trailer, simile there. That's on you. You should have done a better job telling people, now listen, this game's 30 minutes. This game is just, cards and dice. I know the way I'm saying that makes it sound like you're telling people, listen, don't buy this. But you can use the strength of a game that's 30 minutes and cards and dice and a fun time.
This seems self-serving, and I apologize that it does, but I wonder if it would be better if instead of putting all that money into trailers and releases and all of those things that naturally will usually tend to build hype about a game, if they put the money in producing a run, say 500 copies, or however many reviewers are out there, and making sure that they all get those review copies before the game is released. And again, I'm not trying to be self-serving. I'm not trying to be that way. But I'm trying to ask an honest question. Would the money be better spent for the consumers that they have 500 reviewers reviewing their game?
Pretty high number.
I know. I'm just, again, arbitrary numbers.
But this does happen with some companies. Some companies do send out copies to people ahead of time before the
right. But not all of them do. That's one of the main things that
but that's
that
like
we
some
talk
movies
about
get
here.
screenings early for critics and some don't. There's a reason they don't.
But that's what I'm saying, though. Why be shady and hide?
Shady.
That's kind of the road that we're going down now. If we fall
Sam's on
into
this road
that,
by himself. I'm just watching.
No, I'm just saying that. Wouldn't it be better, though, to have 500 honest opinions about a game out there so that the consumers can make their own decision about the game rather than...
Well, I do agree on that. I think a company should send out a lot of review copies to as many reviewers as they can. And now, of course, that can be backlash, too. If all the reviewers say it's not so good, I mean, look at the hype for Seafall.
Which leads into my next thing. If you're going to do that, and if that's the accepted way of doing things, you're going to make sure your game's good. At least from a certain point of view. You're not just going to print mediocre games left and right.
I don't think anybody's trying to make a bad game, okay? I think everybody wants their game to be the best game it can be. I'm just saying the biggest, I really do think, and I'm repeating myself, but I think the biggest hurdle there is perception. I think that's the big one. I think that's the one that's going to lead to the most disappointed people. What they perceive a game to be and what that game actually is upon playing it. You fix that problem, and if you build hype and people are let down by your game, it's just because your game wasn't that good.
Right.
It's not because people didn't get it, or misunderstood what they were supposed to be doing or whatever. So at that point, if you're a good designer, developer, whatever, then hype is wonderful for you because you're going to sell a bajillion copies. Just make sure it's clear what you're selling people.
Yeah.
All right, well, just tell us what you guys think about the hype and anti-hype machines in the comments. We'd love to hear. Have you ever been fooled by a game with the hype and you thought it was amazing? Was it from the Dice Tower? Hopefully not.
It probably was.
Anyhow, we'll be back in a couple weeks to give some more back talk. Until then, I'm Tom Vasel.
Zee Garcia, thank you, everybody.
Sam Healey, see you on the flip side.
Greatest show ever.
Hyperbolic.